Hi everyone. I hope you had a good break. So soon we're gonna start I guess, first and only talk of the evening. But I guess what makes it interesting is there's gonna be multiple speakers. So, um, yeah. Oh, there you go. So tonight's talk is gonna be about Code Your Future, and Mozaffar has been here like in January, kind of presenting what the idea was, but tonight is going to be about, I guess, the outcome of like, was it 3 or 4 months of work? So go ahead.
So, hello everyone. Yeah, stand on. Hello everyone. My name is Muzaffar. I am a software developer from Sudan. Been living here for about 6 years now, and I am part of the team of Code Your Future, and it's a project I'm here to present to you today. So, Code Your Future is a school that teaches programming to refugees and asylum seekers. It's totally run by volunteers. We run a 6-month program to teach mainly web development with the idea of enabling them at the end to get a job in technology. We started in London in October, our first class. It is based on a similar program in Holland it was called Hack Your Future in Holland. And we did a bit of rebranding for UK market, as you do, and we called it Code Your Future. It started very simply by a guy, Herman Benucci in London. He started with a post on Facebook, hey, this is happening in Amsterdam, can we do this in London? And from there in October, the class started in London without funding, without money, just we got free space from a recruitment agency to just use their space on Sundays. And then few people volunteered to teach. With one of them is Cash, who was my friend. I joined around December when I was still in London, and things just started rolling from there. And then from London, I moved personally here to Scotland beginning of the year, and this is when I came and I talked about the idea at the beginning that, hey, can we do this in Scotland if anyone wants to volunteer and so on, and was in TechMeetUp here the first time back in January. And between January and in April, we started our first class. We have 13 students in our first class. Again, the same model, no funding, no money, but we got free space from an art studio to run the class on Saturdays. Everyone volunteers to teach the syllabus, and it's been going great in Glasgow so far. So yeah, this talk will be specifically about our experience in Scotland and the Glasgow experience. And I was going to start with this: why refugees and asylum seekers? It's kind of been sometimes the elephant in the room, not this specific room, but in general, a lot of people would ask why refugees and asylum seekers. We got it. Someone worded it brilliantly. What about Scottish refugees? What about British refugees? There is a point there, I think, that should be discussed. First of all, I think like there should be, ideally, in an ideal world, there should be no distinction. I mean, everyone deserves an opportunity regardless of where they come from or regardless of their background and so on. And once you go that you want to give priority to someone, you go into a very slippery road, like which Scottish, is there even between Scottish, there are different levels or so on. It has to be for everyone. But we did that distinction. We ourselves, we said this is for refugees and asylum seekers. And I think, yeah, the idea is that we want everyone, the mentors involved and so on, we want this to be as inclusive as possible. That our idea is that we want to reach out any disadvantaged, marginalized groups, and this can be marginalized by poverty, by social status, by anything, regardless of where they come from. But in the same time, there is levels of that marginalization in real terms. So being from a rough place or a poor place here is not the same as escaping war. Being a government in a civilized country that looks down its own people, doesn't in terms of social things or so on is bad, but it's not the same as a government actually killing its people or prosecuting them for political reasons, for social reasons, for even for things like sexuality, for anything. It's kind of a different kettle of fish, I think. And this group that comes here, it is the most, not just the most disadvantaged, it's also very villainized in media and so on at the moment, which is sad. So that's why, in a nutshell, what I think why refugees and asylum seekers really. And this is a good point to just do the distinction as well, terminology-wise, what's a refugee and what's an asylum seeker. There is, yeah, we talk refugee in general terms, anyone who's escaping war or anything, but there is a legal difference here. And basically, everyone who comes here claims asylum. And then after you claim asylum, if you get accepted, you have a refugee status. So this is how it works. And when you are an asylum seeker at the beginning, and since you cannot apply for asylum or get refugee status when you're outside, basically outside of UK or Europe, that basically means come here by any means possible and then start the process. So while you are an asylum seeker, you're not allowed to work, and you get 30 pounds a week to live, to survive, whether that's in London or anywhere. Which is, to be honest, that's even more admirable from the students there, that with that all that uncertainty and with that all that tough situation, they still want to do something like Code Your Future, to learn about coding and to get their life started even before the Home Office decides that it started. So it's really admirable, I think, in that sense. The other part of this also, not just why refugees, why coding in the first place? And I got that question from a friend. Like I said, I'm from Sudan. I have this very cynical friend. Like, he's just like, why coding? Like, it's like, what he said is like Marie Antoinette, like when they, in the French Revolution, when she was told people don't have bread, and she was like, let them eat cake. So why, it's like, if you are escaping war, is coding the priority? But I can say, yeah, it is. Coding is it is one of the skills that I would say the most democratic skills that you can have a good life with. No matter where you come from or so on, you can be good at coding, you can have a good life, and you can be integrated, and that's something very good about technology. And it's kind of, it's weird that it's also in the same time, it's one of the less, it's not as diverse as it should, not just in so many terms, so which we will talk about later as well. So that's, yeah, why coding and why refugees and asylum seekers. And then I just like, this is, yeah, between the last three months since I came the first time here, and then the setup of starting the class. So I just put here people who helped us. Like I said, everyone is just by honestly good intentions of good people in mostly this organization and other individuals. So there was three things to sort out mainly: mentors, students, and space. And then there are other issues also: childcare for some students, transport for some students, things like that. And when I came here, was the first thing just finding mentors, people who teach. TechMeetUp, and we found through TechMeetUp here, and we started this React meetup as well. Some of you came to it, and it became a big thing by itself. But it started as a trap to get developers in one place and then tell them about Code Your Future. And it worked out very well, actually. It was our biggest recruitment initiative. So yeah, through here and meetup.com, actually the first few people were Rob and Will, who can't be here. And this was just the groundwork of just getting to these NGOs, finding the students, and so on. And then Nate, Ashley, who are going to present, and Tim, who works here in Skyscanner, who as well, one of our lead mentors there in this module now. And this was the start, and then it went on now for, it's been going as a class since end of April, so 2 months now. finding the students was a bit hard, and these people helped us. I love Refugee, especially, not just because of the name, but they gave us laptops. We had an application process, and they gave us laptops for the students to be able to finish the application process and be part of the course in the first place. Scottish Faith Action, which is based here, also gave a lot of contacts. Glasgow Clyde College, which we got most of the students from, people who do ESOL classes there. And then many studios, art studio based in Glasgow, hosted us for the first 6 weeks. And now we are in Kenning Park Complex in Glasgow, our classes. So this is more a short version of the story of the last few months since we got the class up and running. And we felt like we should say thank you, especially for these people. And then we'll talk about the classes themselves and the mentors and so on. And I will leave this part for Nate.
Yeah, I'm Nate. So I am also one of the mentors. I'll just tell you a little bit about the classes, what we teach, how we teach it, and then mentors, what mentors do, that sort of thing. So first is kind of what we ask from the students. Actually, I didn't put up here, but we have quite an involved sort of application process. And it's really there to kind of weed out people who aren't that committed, because the course does require quite a bit of commitment. It's 6 months long. Every Saturday we meet for sort of 6 hours. And that's kind of a mixture of talking at them, giving them exercises, that sort of stuff. But then we also give them quite a bit of homework that they have to do over the week. And I'd say all in, they probably are asked to do kind of 10 to 15 hours a week. And then a lot of them will also come to these kind of one-on-one meetings throughout the week, where we can provide a bit more hands-on help where they need it. Part of that is what we call the Gordon factor. Where's Gordon? There's Gordon. So initially, most of the mentors are from Edinburgh, although we've got Raj, we've got a few Glaswegian mentors now. But right from the get-go, Gordon was taking on a huge load midweek, meeting like 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week? Yeah, with students one-on-one. We've tried to give him a bit of a break on that, but I think you're still doing quite a bit. But that's quite important. So it's the kind of once a week in class, that's a pretty intense period, but then a lot of the learning happens in the homework and stuff. And then we also kind of get them communicating over Slack, GitHub, managing pull requests, using kind of the Trello, get them used to Kanban methods, that sort of thing. So we teach basically a React stack. So we teach HTML, CSS, we teach basic JavaScript, then we teach Node and database stuff a little bit, although I think we teach less of that probably. But then a lot of what we focus on at the end is actually building apps with React, JavaScript framework. So we tend to kind of hit one thing really hard for a few weeks. Each module is kind of 3 weeks long. So we have 2 JavaScript modules, but kind of HTML, CSS module, then 2 JavaScript modules, then a Node module, that sort of thing. We kind of hit it, and we move on with the idea that we're kind of progressively building their skills. So for the very first HTML, CSS model, to be honest, we were mostly focusing on the basics of like, what is syntax? Like, how do you talk to a computer? What is a web page made out of? So even though we're covering HTML, CSS, we also know that during this 3 weeks, they're not necessarily going to have all the HTML, CSS they need to build great websites. But now that we moved on to JavaScript, we've got them working in Node, writing simple kind of functional tests, doing test-driven development and stuff. And that's all quite abstract now. But soon we're going to introduce the DOM, and that'll bring kind of back to the HTML, CSS. So even though maybe their skills in HTML, CSS aren't at the final level they'll be, the idea is that progressively over time, we're introducing more concepts to them and building on it in a progressive sense. And also, we're trying to be project-oriented. So once we kind of get past the initial stuff and they're comfortable with what code is and how they're using it, basic concepts like variables and functions, We're going to start introducing them to actual projects and getting them to work collaboratively on projects so that they actually get into the practical aspect of building web applications. So in London, for instance, you guys did, the graduate project was, am I right? It's like a search interface for refugee assistance organizations, is that right? So it was a tool that an organization could use if somebody came in and needed help as a refugee. They could type in, figure out what refugee assistance organizations are in their area. So ideally, when we talk about projects, we're talking about real-life projects that we can deliver to someone to be useful. But we also have to balance that with what's realistic and what's going to best serve our students in terms of teaching them stuff. How we teach. We don't do a lot of lectures. We try and keep the upfront talking quite short. We'll typically just kind of introduce a concept, like this is what a function looks like, this is what you should think about a function, and then we'll quickly move on to some sort of exercise. And that's where most of the learning happens. It'll be a simple exercise, and then we'll kind of be sat around the room, like in these photos, and then the mentors will kind of stand around and kind of jump from one student to the next, give them help where they need, and just kind of get them over whatever little conceptual hurdle they've got with this problem. We have a lot of mentors, and we need a lot of mentors, because that kind of is how we make up for the fact that we're not teachers. We don't really have the skills of being a teacher, but we make up for it with a lot of one-on-one attention. And that's why we need a lot of mentors. So if you think you might be interested, we always need more mentors. The more mentors we have, the better progress we're going to have on our students. We also try and make sure that students are helping other students. That's a really important part so that people don't feel like it's all just a one-directional thing. Helping, especially around language. Language is a big issue for us. So oftentimes if you have two students who speak the same language, and you're talking about a really abstract concept, it's one thing to speak a second language and be able to get from one end of town to the other, to go to the shopping market, whatever. It's quite another thing to talk about abstract concepts like properties and values and inheritance and all that kind of stuff in a second language. So that's another area where students helping students can make a big difference. We also kind of have a rule that's ironclad until it's not, which is no keyboard hijacking, because we're all impatient developers and we've all kind of wanted to jump in and be like, no, this, like delete this character. But we try and make sure that you're not touching other people's keyboards, because the students need to be learning to type and to type faster and to do all that stuff themselves. And the more we jump in, the less they're hands-on on that process. And the last thing is we try as much as possible to get away from the screen when we're describing some of these concepts. So during the CSS part, I used Lego bricks to try and illustrate CSS selectors. So get bricks of different sizes, different colors, and then have students write selectors to try and say what the classes are. So write a selector that selects all the big green blocks, for instance. So we try to use practical things like that. Rarish had a brilliant one for Flexbox. If any of you do HTML, CSS stuff, Flexbox is kind of a layout language. And basically, he built a little code pen exercise where you had the Flexbox properties with 3 different colored boxes, and then he had 3 sticky notes of different colors on. And he'd arrange the sticky notes, and the students would have to write the Flexbox rules to match the particular layout of the notes. So that's kind of a lot of what we try to do to get the exercises much more practical and also much less theoretical, and also kind of away from the screen, so that particularly now, because we're still in kind of early days, making sure they understand the concepts of what we're working with, because that's a big hurdle during the early stuff. And then we also try and teach soft skills and integration. So at the start of every class, we do a stand-up. We intend to do retrospectives. I don't think we have done one yet. But we also have them managing their process through Trello, GitHub. They do their homework and they submit pull requests, and we do code reviews that way. And we're also, sort of later on in the course, we start talking about communication skills, interviews, CV writing, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of our goal is about not just the pure kind of coding aspects, but also what Muzaffar was talking about integration, building community, building relationships. Integration can be kind of a politically loaded term, but at least from my perspective, integration is all about making sure that people feel like they have meaning and connections in whatever community they're embedded in. And I think that this is a really important part of what we do, is not just the code for code's sake, but also about getting people in a really intense, transformative time in their life and making sure that they're building relationships with us, with each other, that are going to help them get by when they're here. Mentors. So, full stack React devs are excellent, if any of you are full stack React devs. Also not full stack React devs. I've never worked with React in my life. Doesn't matter. University students, early career developers have been mentors, and basically anyone who understands the logic of coding and who also appreciates the value of kind of self-guided learning. I think, at least up until now, definitely I'd say for the next month or two, you really don't need language-specific skills to help mentor. We're teaching really fundamental stuff around variables and functions and stuff. So really whatever language you program, you can still be really helpful in getting across basic programming fundamentals to our students. And like I said before, the more mentors we have, the better outcomes we get. So if you think you might be able to mentor, that'd be great. What do mentors do? We work on the syllabus. Like I said, we kind of broken down into modules. So usually one person is kind of in charge of a module, but that doesn't mean that they're solely responsible for it. It's usually a bunch of people who are looking at the syllabus, touching it up, adding some exercises, making sure things look all right. And that's really important. There's usually one person kind of leading the class, and then a bunch of those sort of roving mentors that I talked about. So while we're doing exercises, we're all kind of hovering and jumping from one student to the next. Mentors also create exercises, and the exercises are really important. Finding ones that are practical enough to be meaningful, but also teach some of the fundamental things and get that across is quite difficult. So we're always kind of coming up with either the sort of creative physical exercises that help get a point across, or just some of the homework stuff that'll allow them to understand that fundamental stuff. We also need mentors to do online help, which can be over Slack or Google Hangout or stuff like that. When a mentor's doing homework and needs some help midweek, we need more people who are able to just jump in and do a quick chat about how a loop works, for instance. Face-to-face help is really good, so we can reduce that Gordon factor. Because a lot of the mentors are in Edinburgh and the students are in Glasgow, it does take a bit of an extra commitment to do that face-to-face stuff. But it is really, really valuable if you can spare the time. And we also, it's a little bit, there's no glory in it, but it's really important. We need people to review the pull requests for their homework. Mentors also do social media stuff. So one of our mentors, Michael, back in the back there, he reached out to Wesboss, which some of you may know. He runs a bunch of quite well-regarded video courses on JavaScript and React and Node and all these sorts of things. And Wesboss was nice enough to basically give us free access to his courses for our students. So that's been a big success. We also help with childcare, whatever's going on at the time. A lot of this is really ad hoc, and we just kind of make it work. When we needed laptops, we just found laptops from wherever we could. When we need childcare, we just find childcare. We're not very institutionalized about it. We just try and do all hands in kind of thing. Food as well, supply food, just do sort of basic stuff. And generally just be part of the community that we're trying to build around this project, linking refugees with the community. And that means reaching out to companies. We're trying to build relationships with companies that will smooth over maybe the hiring process later on. Figuring out venues where people who will give us permission to be there on a Saturday. and also recruit other mentors like we're here doing today, hopefully. So yeah, I think this goes back to kind of what I was saying before, is just that although getting a job as a coder is what we aim for, there's all this other stuff that happens around it, and that's also really core to what we do and what we think is important about Code Your Future. And I'll hand over to Ashley.
We're demonstrating our diversity in who's doing the talks. So yeah, beyond the main class is basically because we had such a good resource between the mentors and the students themselves eventually as well, that we thought we should utilise, one, the syllabus, the people, the students once they're ready to do little workshops, taster sessions elsewhere, so outside of the Saturdays for other groups as well. So we've ran 2 so far at Notre Dame High School, which, if I understand it right, is the last all-girls public school in Scotland. And then the other one was at St Augustine's High School, and it was for the students that weren't sitting exams during the exam period. So the school was putting on a programme for them to do other things. So we went along and ran a little taster session for them. And it is just because we have all the resources and we thought they would go to waste otherwise. So the way that we're trying to do this is we have an open source repo of little activities so that whichever the needs of the workshop or the group that we're doing, we can put something together ad hoc. So we're just running that, and all the mentors and the students can contribute to that. So I think Mozafar touched on it earlier, but our students are 16% of the current percentile in class. And while we covered what was good for our students about increasing their chances, it's also really important for tech to increase its diversity. You just need to do a quick Google and why diversity is good in tech. The sort of female thing we're doing, we're on 15% ladies, but we've only got a 20% pool of the popular students, so it's not too bad. The mentors were actually at 33% girls, which is good as well. Yeah, and that's just basically covering what I was saying. The way that we're going to try and increase our gender diversity particularly is offering childcare and making sure the mentor balance sends the right message and all that sort of thing. The students, I'm hoping some of them will come up. Yeah? So this is the sort of makeup that they have, and we asked them why they wanted to do it, and hopefully Khaled's going to tell you why he did it.
So hey, my name's Khaled. I'm from Yemen. I was working on that. Anyways, before I started joining this course, I was trying to learn by myself, and I started learning by myself. I opened
Some free courses. I I opened some free courses online, and what happened was I opened HTML, and I got like, okay, it's easy. Then I went to CSS, and I was like, yeah, I understand. Then I went to JavaScript, then I went to Ruby. In weeks, I just took all the things what they are doing, but I was so confused. I couldn't relate what's happening and how can I use all of them together. Then I left. I was like, oh, this is so difficult. I left it for 5 years. So I came here. I met Mudaffar in the Scottish Refugee Council, I think, and I told him I really want to learn, but I don't know how. I don't know how to get to college. I don't know. I mean, nobody will accept me to, because I'm a asylum seeker. So he was like, yeah, join this. It's free, and we help you. And what I discovered is it's not just an opportunity to learn. I mean, the things that we learn, it's so practical, and if I go to college 4 years, I don't think I will learn what I learned in this 6 months. I have already seen the improvement. CSS, I can open like Bootstrap code, I can read it, I can understand it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Before that, I was so confused. I can change it, I can play with it, but I can't do the practical things. The second thing is the mentors.
are giving us the practical side of the work. So like the stand-up thing, like the GitHub, so many things that related to the job itself, and the TDD, the testing. I would never study testing by myself. I would like, this is useless. What, I would test myself? No, someone will test it for me. I was like, what's the point? But then he was like, it's part of your interview. I was like, focus on it. I was like, okay, I'll focus on it. Then I study it, and we are doing right now the testing part. So this is the second thing. And the third thing that I really enjoyed is I never expected like someone would reply to my email or to my message. Like, I know different countries, especially Yemen, he will be like the boss. Don't talk to me, don't, you know, you just servant for me. You are a student, you can't ask, you just listen, you memorize, you do what I told you. That's not learning, that's not teaching, but here everyone's helping me. Even sometimes it's like, I don't know, can you help me? And they say, we don't know, you have to try it or Google it. But that's how I learn. That's the good thing. And the other good thing is I can talk to them, like most of the mentors, I talk to them anytime I want. Like Michael, I reached him 12 p.m. Like, can you help me? Yes, and then he started texting me some links, and so that's what I loved, and they became my family in just 3 weeks, and I loved all of them, and all of them are very helpful, and that's my part.
We asked the whole group of them over Slack why they did it and what they were enjoying about it, and these are just a collection of the answers, but I think Khaled put it perfectly. I think that's it. Oh yeah, just how you can help. That's it.
How can you help with this project if you like the idea? So we touched on few things. As I said, it's everything relies on volunteers, and it's pretty ad hoc, you can say, or sometimes we say it's more, we run it like a startup, and we pivot and we say what's needed to get the job done. But everyone chips in and considers it their own project. So helping with becoming a mentor, if you can't commit on coming Saturdays, it's not a problem. There are lots of roles, like Nate explained, to be involved. And also after that, just the idea of this is to get jobs. And in London, so as I said, like the asylum seekers, they will hopefully get the right to work by the end of the course. But also we have 5 who have refugee status already, and they can work if they given the chance to get to interview and get a job. In Holland, in Hack Your Future, 13 out of 20 students got job in tech by the end of it. In our London class that just graduated, we have 4 who have the right to work. 3 of them already got a job, and the 4th person actually he was helping with other stuff. But it's just the opportunity, and it's not a favor or anything. It's actually a good developer, and that's all we ask, that they get a fair chance, basically, and you can judge based on that. And now, like before finish the 6 months, we hope that today Tim did a tour for the students here in Skyscanner, and they saw how they work, how the company work, and they are all impressed by Skyscanner. And we hope to do more of that. So if you are in a company, big or small, if you can get them to just have a tour or stay with you for a day or week placement, internship, just anything that you think that can help with this. We will be doing more of these short talks before the class, so things that are not strictly programming, but they are important, interviewing, agile, about your company, about DevOps, about other aspects of software developments. There are also the practical side of things, used laptops. If you have any old laptop as a company or as an individual, that's very helpful, not just with the students now, also with the people applying for the next course, with the tester classes that we try to do. There is childcare, which is, unfortunately, when we're doing this is, if there is one aspect that we hope that we don't do it ad hoc, would be childcare, because we lost a lot of potential students because we could not commit about saying we definitely can provide childcare. If we can get that sorted, definitely we'll get more balanced classes and we'll reach more people. Also, we ended up doing the class in Glasgow, and we have 13 students. Only one is based in Edinburgh, but we think that it will continue being in Glasgow because is a bigger community. But we don't want to limit the opportunity for people who are in Edinburgh or other cities around. So, if you sponsor travel, which is £8 for ticket to for every weekend. That's nothing for most of us, but it's a big help for someone to come for the class. And just tell about us, tweet, share, and we have lots of these flyers. Press tech as many as you'd like, and give them around. And come over on a Saturday. At least you will get amazing Ethiopian food by Johannes, if nothing else. Yeah. And that's it, right? That's it. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Questions? Anyone?
First of all, that's amazingly inspiring. Great work. Do you write? Like, is the syllabus created entirely by you guys?
Yeah, so it is. We start in London. Like I said, we try to get it done. The first round, we were lucky that we got something concrete to start with from the London group, and we built on that, and we learned from mistakes that we did, and we improved, and we keep improving. So we have a syllabus. It's on GitHub. The starting point was some stuff from Hack Your Future in Amsterdam when we came to London, but the market in London was more React focused at this point and JavaScript, and we switched a bit toward that. Here we also we are thinking about whether this is the best thing for Scotland. We now acknowledge that we need to do Java because there are lots of financial places, and we are adapting the syllabus for that as well. So it's there, it's open source. We have something to build on, but it's always work in progress. So feedback on the syllabus is also very good, especially from companies. Yeah.
I noticed that the syllabus is very much geared towards sort of full stack development, maybe web applications. Evian, you mentioned progressing to sort of Java, etc., which is still mostly in the application space. Are you considering broadening to the fuller spectrum of IT, so system administration, or more narrowly just the testing environment, testing type roles, IT administration, even IT management for that matter?
Yeah, so we are pragmatic about it, and it depends on the resources really. Most of people, like the volunteers, we all have jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, and the students also, they have classes, ESOL classes and so on. So I think them becoming web developers will be very it's a very tough ask in 6 months part-time with everything going on in their life. But in the same time, because of the resources that we have, for example, Michael is going on doing a bit of a track about computer science and algorithm in general. And I just talked with a lady who offered that to do a DevOps module as well. We are lucky in the sense that if we have this resource and we have more of this resource and we don't get burned out in 6 months, which is important, we hope that we do more, but we also don't want to get distracted in so many directions and end up not being good in anything. So specializing in one thing and being good at it is the most important part as well.
Would you imagine branches then?
Yeah.
Would you imagine branches then?
Yeah, well, actually, so Herman in London, he had a presentation about what we need and how we want to scale this. And it's very interesting. So we have now London, Glasgow, and Manchester is happening. And we have statistics that we have these 3 cities plus Birmingham. We cover about 65% of refugees around in a radius of 1 hour. So we're hoping, yeah, branches all over, at least in these 4 cities. Branches in Scotland. I hope, like at this stage, just getting this one very good, and then maybe have a second one. Yeah. We wanted to do it in Edinburgh when we started, but it's just that where the refugees and asylum seekers are, it's in Glasgow mainly. Yeah.
Just whilst I can ask.
Yeah.
Coming to join on Saturday. Where?
Right now, we are in Kenning Park Complex in Glasgow. So it's 3-4 stops from Queen Street Park if you're coming from here. And most of us come from Edinburgh. We go together by train. So you could, if you email us with this in the flyers, there is the email. You can join us and you can come with us at least one Saturday and see if you like it. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm not quite sure what my question is going to be. So here's how I think the way the world works, or at least my little bit of the world, is that it doesn't really matter what color your skin is, or where you come from, or what your religious background is, or what's anything. It's like if you want to do IT, if you want to be a software person, your brain thinks a certain way or it doesn't. So these people who you said right at the start there was some sort of selection process.
Yeah.
Have you found that the people who have come to join you are basically geeks like us here, or is it more people who just want a shot at something and
Yeah.
that's what comes along, or are they just really like geeks at heart and that's what they would have done anyway regardless of where they were?
No, they are not. So it's very diverse, the reasons. Does any of you want to say something? But no, okay. is very diverse, but there are a couple who he really wanted to do programming, and that was the right chance. We have someone who actually have the right to work already, and he was a C# developer in Syria, but just the fact that he has to restart his life here, he's starting again. But he's an established developer. He was doing AutoCAD plugins in before coming, 3D stuff in C#. So you have that. You have a lady from Somalia who wanted to be good in IT in general, just to keep up with her kids. As she said, that's very simple reason. But then she's now really into it, and she's great. She's very involved, and she loves it. So there are different reasons. Mostly, yeah, what we said, like people want an opportunity, especially when you are at that stage where you're waiting for all these decisions and so on. But no, it's not everyone is a geek, but it's different reasons. But I think once they become part of it, they become geeks, and we are seeing that.
All right.
we are teaching them all of it, like lots of coffee without a need for it, and all the cultural aspects of being a developer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear though that it is kind of a broad group. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Next. Anyone else?
Any more questions? If not, well, I guess
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you guys. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
So yeah, I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight, and I'd like again to thank our sponsors who kind of gave us a room and like sponsored like the drinks and the food, Skyscanner, Cultivate, and Informatics Ventures. And I do hope you pick up some flyers for Code Your Future and get in touch with them because it sounds like a great idea to me. And yeah, we're gonna be here again next month, second Wednesday of the month. For now, if you could maybe help with just putting stuff in there should be some bean bags at the back, and just